I got a disease that keeps telling me I don't have a disease.
My life pretty quickly was how to get as much money as possible, what scam to pull, who to steal from, to continue doing drugs. One of those groups introduced me to cocaine. Graduation, I got arrested. I was on the way to celebrate with my friends. If you stay ready, you ain't gotta get ready. And that was the start of my sobriety. Like, life was really good.
Chief Motivator here with another edition of Tip Tuesday. What is your next 5 moves?
I started to do 12-step work. I got a sponsor. When I was sober, I went to Rutgers, had all these friends, had girlfriends, graduated. All these amazing things were happening.
Finding out who I am, what motivates me, what my goals are, and what I want.
Mitchell left, or Mitch Motivates as he goes by there, is a sobriety coach and author of the upcoming book, My Addiction, My Superpower.
I've been to a lot of 12-step meetings. Your sobriety is your most important thing.
And by the way, we have the book right over here. It's called My Addiction, My Superpower. It says here, 12 tips for overcoming addiction, crushing life, and inspiring others.
That's why I wrote the book, because I wanted it to be one tool that someone could use in a gigantic toolbox in recovery. I broke down my life story, and each part of the story, I broke it down into 12 chapters, 12 steps, and at the end of each chapter, I summarized it and gave a tip based off my experience in my life.
And that's another edition of Tip Tuesday by your Chief Motivator, Mitch Motivates. Consistency is king, because you better know that one of my moves is make more content and be consistent.
Green lights and blue skies are on their way. Yeah, they're on their way.
Hey everybody, Corey Rabin here. We have Crosstalk for you, a very, very special edition of Crosstalk. By the way, I want to remind you before we get started to follow us, subscribe, give us comments, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, and hit that like button, hit the crap out of that like button. And that's how we're going to know that you're watching us and that you're enjoying what you're seeing. Today we have a very, very special guest, somebody I've come to call Mitch Motivates. That's what everybody calls him. Mitchell F. is here. He's an author. He's in recovery, long-term recovery. Really, really interesting story. I can't wait for him to share a story with you. So let's welcome Mitch Motivates.
Round of applause.
You know, in the Catskill Mountains, they used to introduce the star. It was also, will you welcome, please, the fabulous Mickey Lee. It was always a quick name, always a fast name.
Yeah.
But today it's Mitch Motivates. And I'm excited for you to be here.
I'm thinking about changing my name to Jackie Mason, and I think it would fit perfectly.
Yeah, maybe I should change my name.
Thank you, Corey, for having me. I'm really excited to be here to share my story. Should I get right into it?
Get right into it. Tell us
Cool.
a little bit of how life started and, about your upbringing,
Yeah.
where you grew up and how things started.
Yeah, look, we say what it was like, what happened, and what it was like now.
Right.
I'm 36 years old now. I grew up in a beautiful North Jersey suburb. Family's great. I'm still close with them today. Tight family. Never saw any problems at home with drinking, with drugs. No violence, nothing. My childhood was great. I say that I discovered alcohol because the first time I drank, I was 15, 16 in the basement of one of my buddy's houses. And we just were having a beer from his fridge. He's like, my parents aren't home, let's get a beer. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And right away, I started drinking alone.
So when you had that first beer,
Mm-hmm.
you said, this is amazing. What did it feel like?
Like I discovered it. It would felt like a normal drink, but something inside me was like, oh my God, like warm apple pie. Like, wow, this is amazing. How can I get more? And right away, I started drinking alone. I remember the next weekend asking my friend's brother, who was I think he was just turned 21, to get me a bottle of like Bacardi Raz or something. And I put it in like this lockbox that I made at Jewish summer camp in my closet and locked it up. And I had this bottle, and I remember just drinking it alone. And this feels good. You know, drinking, like the rules of drinking. So drink socially, have one, drink with your friends. Never like crossed my mind. What crossed my mind right away was, I'm going to drink to get drunk. I like the feeling. This is great. Why would I share it with anyone?
When's the first time that you actually got drunk?
Yeah, probably my second or third time drinking. And just to take a step back even before then, I always use this example. I had some addictive tendencies growing up. The first thing, I had these chewable vitamins as a kid, and they were like orange, grape, cherry. You know, you have one a day. It's a vitamin. I remember climbing on the kitchen counter because I couldn't reach the cabinet and grabbing a handful of vitamins and eating them like candy. Fast forward, before I even took my first drink, I went through a phase where I would steal money, like the high of getting money and stealing it. So then when I discovered alcohol, it just like, I did that, like I did the vitamins, like I was stealing money, just 100%. So I wasn't drinking socially, and I was drinking to get drunk right off the bat. It turned into smoking marijuana every day.
What age?
16.
So we're 15, 16, first drink. Now you're finding other alcohol,
Yeah.
and you moved into cannabis.
Yeah. Look, my buddy used to say, drug dealers don't card. Right? You don't have to be 21 to get drugs. So at that point, it was easier for me to get weed than to steal alcohol, because I had to, my friend's brother, I use that example, but I usually had to steal it. Bottle of wine from my friend, taking my parents' liquor and topping it off with water. I always give the example. My dad had a frozen bottle of vodka in the fridge, a freezer downstairs, and I filled it with water, and then it was a giant ice cube, and he caught me. So I wasn't the best thief.
And if I remember correctly, in your book, which we'll talk about in a little while, your friend's parents had wine.
Yeah.
And some of that wine was missing, and you got caught doing that as well, right?
Yeah, that was the first time I blacked out. Again, same year, probably like 16, or that was 17. We were at a sleepover, just like I used to be like a nerdy kid, like played video games and had sleepovers with other guys in high school, and like sleeping bags, the whole works. And I stole the bottle of wine, drank the whole thing, blacked out. And then they told me the next day that they had to watch me all night, like watch my breathing. They were nervous. Like that's who I had slowly started becoming. And then my thinking was, let me get rid of those friends and get new friends who were using drugs like I was using. So I had like 4 or 5 groups of friends at that point that were smoking weed. And I would hang out with each one of them once a day. So I started missing class before school. I was going after school. I started smoking weed a lot. One of those groups introduced me to cocaine. And that really took me downhill quickly, the cocaine. I was using it like I did the weed.
You were still in high school?
Yeah. And I had the same attitude, like, it's better to do it alone. This feels good. If I'm going to do it with other people, like maybe I can use them or manipulate them to get it for me. I certainly wasn't a good drug dealer. I remember, if you've seen the movie Scarface, the number one rule is don't get high on your own supply, right? And that was, I feel like if you're an addict, it's hard to be a drug dealer because you want to get high on your own supply. And that's what happened. I was the worst drug dealer in history. And so I started using coke like I was using the weed, like I was drinking. And before school, during class, didn't care about anything. My life pretty quickly was how to get as much money as possible, what scam to pull, who to steal from, to continue doing drugs. I managed through high school. Graduation night, I somehow graduated. I got arrested that night. I was on the way to celebrate with my friends, and
You celebrate graduation.
Yeah, graduation from high school. I pulled into the 7-Eleven parking lot with my friend. I went in. He stayed in the car. He was smoking weed. he didn't know that I was doing coke all day and I had like leftover baggies in my car with residue. Someone saw him, called the police. As we're leaving, going to the party to celebrate with everyone, a cop pulls into the 7-Eleven parking lot, cuts me off, handcuffs. I whispered, I saw someone walking in the 7-Eleven. I don't know how he heard me. I was like, call my dad. I have like a flashback of that. It's crazy. Saying, like, mouthing to this guy that I saw. I'm like handcuffed in the chair. Like that just what a couple years before I was like a really good kid. I don't know what happened.
Sounds like the fuse got lit.
Yeah.
Around 15.
Yeah.
And I remember reading about the 7-Eleven. Your behavior in the 7-Eleven was nuts and got people concerned. And somebody called the cops, right?
Yes.
And so you're going to jail, but you kind of got away with that, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I spent the night in a police station handcuffed to a chair, graduation night from high school. I don't know how, at this point I was pretty good at getting out, like lying, stealing, cheating. Like that was my high school degree. That's what I should have got my high school degree in. I remember we knew this guy. He was a lawyer. He got me out of it, but I had to take a drug test. I remember thinking, I can't smoke pot. Let me just do coke, because coke gets out of your system in 3 days. Pot, it takes 28 days, maybe more. The hair samples. And I literally couldn't stop doing coke to take a drug test. I don't even know how it got expunged. I got lucky. I got too lucky. There was a lot of driving while drunk. Told you about the arrest. Like, I did a lot of risky behaviors. Who knows with the fentanyl epidemic nowadays, like what batch I could have got. Like, I'm so lucky to be here. I know that.
So your graduation is not exactly a celebration.
No.
But you get away with it. And so where'd you go from that point? It sounds to me like things didn't go directly to the moon. I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more, but
Yeah. It went more downhill, actually. So I got into college. I went to Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. If you haven't been, it's basically you fly into Indianapolis and you drive an hour through farm, and you get to a college town with a bunch of bars, and most of the people there are from Long Island and New Jersey. So it's just like a party in the middle of the woods, basically. Who happens to be good at basketball. That's Indiana University. And
so you were on the basketball team.
That's a good one. I'm going to get to it though, but I played college hockey in sobriety. So I was a college athlete.
Really?
Okay, I'm going to get to it, which I'm proud of. So Indiana was downhill right away. I didn't go to class. I kept my coke habit. Every day, how could I get money? What can I sell? Who could I cheat? Like, who can I lie to? It was crazy. I mean, at my bottom at Indiana, I didn't go to class. My roommate had moved out. I was urinating in water bottles in my dorm room because I was so paranoid to even go down the hallway. I come back after winter break, second semester freshman year, and my dorm, the people in my dorm had like an intervention for me. I remember we were looking up rehabs in Indiana. Like, it was that bad. And I continued to do what I was doing. And I got saved, though. It was like by the grace of God. April of my freshman year, and I was just such a degenerate. Like I said, didn't shower. My nose was always clogged. My roommate had moved out. My room was disgusting, smelled like urine, and I was smoking cigarettes in the room. I had to go back to Jersey for a family event. I go back to Jersey, and I don't show up to this weekend event for my cousin, and I ended up running away. The first night I went to my drug dealer's house, and then I spent the weekend in some random motel room. I would do this thing where I would steal credit cards, and I would use them to buy gift cards, and use the gift cards to buy drugs. So I basically had an unlimited supply of drugs because I could, they didn't ask for ID back then. Like you go to Dwayne Reed and buy an American Express gift card. Now they need your like social security number, your driver's license. Back then, just any credit card. So I had this good thing going, and I didn't find out until rehab that was only normal for drug addicts. Not normal people don't do that. Then I ran away to some motel room. Sunday comes around. I came home on a Thursday. My parents filed a missing persons report. My uncle's calling me. My dad's calling me. Where's Mitch? They filed like back of a milk carton. He's missing.
You're like 20 right now or 19?
It was like a week before my 19th birthday. So my addiction was about 3 years. But it continued. I called this hotline that I found the yellow pages in the motel room. I called this hotline and I like broke down crying. I said I needed help. I don't know how I got here because at that point, I always got out of stuff. But at that point I was like, whoa, like I just ran away. I didn't even show up to my cousin's bat mitzvah. It's Sunday. Everyone is looking for me. They thought I would be home Thursday night. So I hear a knock on the door. They ended up telling my parents where I was and that I was okay. A knock on the door. It's 5 police officers. They take me to a hospital. It's what you have to do when you find a missing person. You take them to the hospital. My family came. I broke down crying and said I need help. I had like IVs in my arm. It was crazy. They knew this addiction psychiatrist. We went to see him. I went to live with my aunt and uncle for that week in between the hospital and rehab. And my parents, we went to the first place they recommended, the Karen Foundation, in Wernersville, Pennsylvania. And that was the start of my sobriety. I went to Karen April 18th, 2006. A week later, I turned 19. So that's how I got into sobriety.
It's pretty young to be in rehab.
Yeah.
And did it stick at that point?
Yes and no. I knew that I needed help. Kind of like, the easiest example is that I'm thinking of right off the top of my head. If you have appendicitis, there's no age for appendicitis. Your appendix is going to blow up. You feel that you're like you need help. It was like that obvious that I needed help. Like no one says, "Oh, you're too young to do that. Maybe you shouldn't go to the hospital." No, I went to rehab. I needed help. Like I was very willing. I knew that I needed help. The problem is that with addiction, it's a disease that when you start to, feel better and distance yourself from that last drink or drug, you almost forget what it was like. So I went to rehab for 4 months. Then they sent me, again, we said yes to extended care at Karen Foundation. So I ended up being there for 4 months total. They said, go to this halfway house run by this guy, Scotty, in the Poconos. He used to work here. He's a good guy. It's all guys. It's perfect fit. We said yes. Went to live with Scotty for 4 months.
I know the house.
Yeah? He's a really awesome guy. And, I've been talking about him a lot with the book. I should reach out. It's been a couple years. But he is a legend. And you learn about sobriety and you learn structure in rehab. I got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous, 12-step. But it's not until but it's also almost a fantasy world because that's not real life. Like you don't have someone cook for you in real life. Like you don't get taken to meetings. Like you have to do it all on your own. So the extended care and the sober living really helped push me in the right direction in my sobriety. And I stayed sober with him. And I got a job. I went to community college. I started paying some bills. I started sending money home to my parents. I was stealing. I started to do 12-step work, got a sponsor. And then a couple weeks after I moved out of Scotty's house, I realized. It was like that quick. Like we have this expression, and I use this often, when we're in the meeting, your addiction's doing push-ups in the parking lot. It's getting stronger. And to me, it was like I started not doing the things that I did to get sober at that point. I met a girl. It was definitely poor taste, poor judge of character because she was an active drug user. So a sober guy and an active drug user. And for her birthday, we got a motel room and did drugs. So then I was living with sober guys at that time that I met through Scotty's house. So I that's when I started lying about my sobriety because I didn't want to get kicked out of living with them. I didn't want them to think less of me. I wanted to celebrate time in AA. So it took me a while to get around to that. It took rigorous work.
To get honest about it.
Yeah.
That's tough stuff to do.
Yeah. So I wasn't perfect right away. It took years.
One of the things I remember hearing early on for me was I got a disease that keeps telling me I don't have a disease.
Yeah.
It's so easy once things start to get better and you start feeling physically better,
Yeah.
and your relationships become a little bit healthier. The further away you get, if you don't really keep on it, it's so easy to forget.
Yeah, 100%. Which is why today, sometimes I even forget how much sober time I have, but I've been sober since August 25th, 2008. And I'll get to that in my story. But today it's equally as important than my first couple days, like what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis to keep my sobriety. Very important. So I ended up staying in the Poconos for a bit, and we found out that Rutgers University had a program, my family, for students in recovery. And they helped you get into the university. And it was always my goal to get back into a 4-year school. Since I left Indiana, I failed out of Indiana and went to rehab. When I was at community college, I went to Northampton Community College that in the halfway house they helped me get into. I played on their hockey team. So there's my college athletics. And but I wanted more. So when I found out about the Rutgers program, that I can be sober, live in a recovery dorm, it was awesome. And I stayed there for 3 years. I had a couple more relapses when I was at Rutgers, and I know my sobriety date because the last time I relapsed, it was the closing ceremony of the Beijing Olympics. And I had it because I was still, which was August 24th, 2008. And it took me a while, a lot of work in recovery to get honest about everything I've been through in recovery and before and when I was using. And I eventually went back and looked when the closing ceremony was. I remember David Beckham was on a bus because London was the next Olympics in 2012. And that was August 24th because I was high that day. And then the next day was my sobriety date. And it's coming up on 16 years of continuous sobriety.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So just to get back, so you went to Rutgers for 3 years.
Yes.
You got a degree?
Yep.
And so at that point, when you graduated from Rutgers, you're sober now.
Yes.
And so what life look like that? Did things change for you, or did you did other school?
I mean, look, it's not for me as a college student, a young person in recovery. It was like a no-brainer equation. When I was using in college, I failed out and went to rehab. When I was sober, I went to Rutgers, had all these friends, had girlfriends, graduated. The last semester I studied abroad in Italy. All these amazing things were happening. This is crazy that I'm able to do this. I get to do this, and it's because I'm sober. So a lot of great things happened. One of the benefits is that, because I was sober, I was networking to figure out what I was going to do in my early career. I'm someone that was an alumni. This girl, Megan, she used to live in the house at Rutgers. She lived around the area. She worked in PR. She had interned at this place for this guy that was sober that worked in PR. So she connected me with him. He's like, come by. I ended up interning at their firm as a sober. So to me, it was just so mesmerizing to be sober, to be in New York. I knew a couple people that I kept my network small but close. I knew a couple people from Rutgers that were living in the city, working, going to meetings. I knew the backstory, the foundation of AA and 12-step programs was in New York. So I knew this was a great place to be young and sober. So I was deciding on staying in New Brunswick at Rutgers or moving to New York. And I did the right thing. I ended up moving to New York with a guy from Rutgers. So I moved with a sober roommate. And that was 2009 maybe when I moved to New York. Mm-hmm. And so I first got sober when rehab 2006, right? So for 3 years, all I did was like, in terms of like living and where I was, I say I had smart feet. So rehab 4 months, halfway house, Rutgers, sober roommate, like, and that worked.
And 12-step meetings.
Yeah. So I get to New York. It was so exciting. I got really involved. I kept my circle small. I went to a lot of meetings. I kept New York really small. Like I didn't do too much except work, go to meetings, really work on my recovery. And I did that for a number of years.
Did you sponsor people? And
Yeah.
You had a sponsor?
Sponsees, 12-step. Started to get into spirituality, prayer, meditation. Took that a step further, did like TM classes, got really into my religion, started working in sobriety. I had a real good sober job. I worked at a recovery company for like 6-7 years.
Wow.
And to me, like, life was really good. Family was good. Work was good. Health was good. Sobriety was good. But I found myself in a similar position after a bit as to where I was when I moved out of Scotty's house. I stopped doing the things that got me to where I was. And it's like cyclical for me. But it's the disease, like you talked about. It's the disease that tells you don't have a disease. And to me, I've really learned that the way through those cycles is through routine and discipline. And those are things I learned in the halfway house with Scotty. You know, making your bed, or, you know, eating breakfast, fitness, like working out, having a job, keeping a job, having a good relationship with my family, making sure I have 12-step meetings or some type of recovery meeting in my life, a sponsor, new people. Like I could go through the list, a network of guys that I call and that have sober experience to just talk about things. And just like, that's like, and I get through it. So
Somebody who had a long time, 50 plus years, at every meeting I hear something that I've never heard before.
Mm-hmm.
So I pick up something at every meeting.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, I was in my home group meeting in Florida, and a woman says, I wake up every day with untreated alcoholism, untreated addiction, which means every day I have to do something to remind myself of where I was and where I am and where I want to be. And so you can't take it for granted.
Yep.
And so the things you're describing are exactly what somebody has to do. And proof is in the pudding with your long-term sobriety.
Yeah. You know, very well said. I got to a place that I made like my job the higher power. And because I was working, and I share about this in the book, which we'll get to, I was working in an environment where I was helping people. So, but I confused it with my recovery. Like, helping people is the best. Helping people in addiction is the best. But if, God forbid, if you're on a plane and it's going down, they say, what do they always say? Put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you help someone else, even if it's your kid. Right? You can't help someone else if you don't, like, you can't give away what you don't have. And for me, that was the confusion. And my job was my higher power. I was like obsessed with working, and like, I was like, I can't go to this meeting. I'm working too late. And then it turns into like unhealthy behaviors. Oh, I don't want to go to this meeting because I don't want to see that person. Like just real, like normal stuff. But I was guilty of it, and I was in a bad place. I got through it through podcast, actually.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, I really connected. At that point, I was in my early 30s, and I really connected with these entrepreneurs that at like in their early 30s, which I was, had hit bottom. Barbara Corcoran is like one of my favorite stories because she was in like this relationship getting abused. She was like in a domestic violence like relationship. She was a waitress in Bergen County at like 33, and she had no idea what to do with herself. And I was like, Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank? Like, she was older than me, and she started, like, so I started to get inspired by people like that and look at myself, and like I said, that can be me. You know, it's never too late to start over in terms of career. And I really started listening to, so slowly Mitch Motivates was starting to become formed because I was in a dark place with some stuff in my life. I wasn't really working that well of a program in recovery. There was a point I didn't even have a sponsor, which was very uncharacteristic of the recovery I knew.
And what year are we talking about?
This was like 2012, 2013.
Okay.
And I ended up leaving the recovery company I was at. I traveled a little bit. I went to Florida. I went to Paris, just like doing everything. I decided to get a job not working in recovery just to take a time out. And I missed the recovery work. So I ended up just being there for a short time, but starting my own company, Mitch Motivates. And I fell in love with fitness as well at this time. And I was running marathons and doing workout classes, cycling classes, and boot camp classes, and starting to meet all these people. At that point, I was sober for so long, it seemed like all I knew was people in recovery. And I started to meet people that were like, oh, you're not sober, but you don't really drink? Like, that's cool. Like, let's grab a juice. So I call these people sober adjacent. Like, I'm meeting people that are like into health and fitness and wellness, and they're seekers like I am. They're into bettering their life, but they just not happen to be a drug addict or an alcoholic. And I start getting involved with these communities. And this is like how Mitch Motivates got formed. I am sober, living a healthy lifestyle. My addiction, I am an addict, but I was like, I don't want my addiction to define me. Like, I get to live this life today because of my recovery. So let's go live it, kind of thing.
So Mitch Motivates is something we've alluded to a couple of times. Talk about what Mitch Motivates means, and what do we want to tell people about this brand that you're created?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is just lead by example. And it's funny, I just randomly came up with the name, and I thought it was well fitting. And I thought that after what I've been through, you know, getting sober and my addiction and staying sober, just that's enough. Like I'm very ambitious, but Mitch Motivates is leading by example, that it's amazing to have gotten this far. And I don't even have to do like I don't have to win a Nobel Peace Prize to be Mitch Motivates. Like, I don't have to win the New York Marathon. I can just be sober and run a marathon. I could come in 40,000th place. That's still beyond impressive, you know? And so that's what Mitch Motivates is, just leading by example and living a life where I get to do amazing things today because of my sobriety, and inspiring people that if you've been through something tough, you can get through it and live an amazing life as well.
And so what are you doing today to promote I know you've been on national news outlets. That's how we actually kind of connected with one another. I saw one of the clips on, was it CBS?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did very well.
Thank you. You know, I owe a very special person to me, Mindy. She introduced me to my publisher, and we got the book. I worked with her PR team. She did a great job. So grateful. So what happened is just going to back up a little bit and get to the book. So I go out on my own in the recovery world. I missed it. Start my own company, Mitch Motivates. I was also using my experience working in recovery to just be, you know, an independent recovery professional, helping people. We do many different things. But I ended up connecting with this plastic surgeon Dr. Einstein and started working for him. And while I was working for him at his office, I rose to become the COO and run the operations of the plastic surgery practice. And it's just the most amazing thing. And I found myself again, like, this is who I get to be because I show up and I'm sober. It's like, that is Mitch Motivates. It's just leading by example and getting to live this life as a sober guy. So I was inspired to, while working for the plastic surgeon, to write a book. And I met Mindy, and she introduced me to the publisher. She helped me get a ghostwriter, and I thought it was a great idea, especially after getting through the pandemic, Corey, and realizing podcasts are huge, that 12-step is not the only way to get the message out to people struggling with addiction and alcoholism, or mental health, or substance abuse, whatever it is. And it took about 2 years, and it came out. And I'm just coming off the first 90 days. We did a book tour, and I went to LA and Connecticut and Philly, and it's just great to get my story down in this format. And I give 12 easy tips besides my story for anyone struggling with the same things, with the addiction, substance abuse, mental health, and recovery.
And by the way, we have the book right over here. And let me just show it to everybody. It's called My Addiction, My Superpower. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it is a superpower to be in recovery because it teaches us things that I didn't learn in school. I didn't learn from mommy and daddy. I learned basically from other people who did what I did. And we all together in a community found a way to just live a different kind of life. So it says here, now I'm going to quiz you on your own book for a moment. It says here, 12 tips for overcoming addiction, crushing life and inspiring others.
Yes.
So you don't have to, read, go right through from the top, 12 tips, but can you tell us a little bit about the tips that are in here?
Of course. Thank you, Corey. I love the promotion. I'm so grateful.
Hey, listen,
Thank you.
we're all about helping people get their shit together.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know how to do it, we're hoping this helps people move in the right direction. And for those of us who are sober, it helps keep us where we are. I don't believe you have to get something from Crosstalk if you're an addict. This is about living and trying to find ways to just get through this difficult life. And you don't have to be an addict to get good information about how to make life better.
Yeah. And that's why I wrote the book, because I wanted it to be one tool that someone could use in a gigantic toolbox in recovery. How I did it is I broke down my life story from, just like I did in this podcast, and each part of the story, I broke it down into 12 chapters, 12 steps, 12 tips. And at the end of each chapter I summarized it and gave a tip based off my experience in my life. So the chapter about me going from rehab to the halfway house to college to living with someone from the halfway house, I call that having smart feet. And you should, where you live is important, and you should be mindful of that. So that's an example. One of the later chapters, when I talk about, and I love the movie Philadelphia, when Denzel Washington's character, he always says, like, tell it to me like I'm a 6-year-old. Explain it to me, like layman's term. Like, I like to dumb it down and really explain. Actually, let's not say the word dumb it down. I feel like people would think that, I don't want them to think I feel like they're
moved
stupid.
to strike, dumb it down.
Sustained. So, one of my favorite movies, Philadelphia, Denzel Washington says, tell it to me like I'm a 6-year-old. I really explained it. So I go through and explain everything I've done in my life. And one of my favorite quotes, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. I was learning about marketing for years from my plastic surgeon that I worked for, and I was reading a lot. Doctors, they read a lot of books. They went to school for a long time. So, we started a book of the month club at the office. So I had the tools. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. So, and then someone approached me and said, "You have a good story. Would you ever want to write a book?" I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I did it. And I explain in the book how I did it. And then I say, "Here's the tip. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready." I just break it down so easy. I put all my contact info in the book. Email me. Here's my website. I just make it easy for people to find me. I resent, like, when people just bask in the success and don't share how they got there. Like, that's not what I like. I like explaining, like, Barbara Corcoran, I was in an abusive relationship. I was 32. Then I started Corcoran Real Estate. Now I'm on Shark Tank. Like, I want to know how you did it.
So, are you doing coaching as well?
Sometimes I do coaching for very, specialty clients. I'll do coaching, but really I work for the plastic surgeon. That's my day job. That's my 9 to 5, and I do the book, and I'm doing the book. And I'll take on maybe 1, maybe 2 clients at a time for coaching.
Because it would seem to me, if you have the time to do that,
Yeah.
it'd be a natural fit. I can see how giving and how excited you get about the process of sharing what you've learned.
Yes.
And, they say in order to keep it, you got to give it away. So this is kind of selfish. If you don't mind me saying, you're a pretty selfish guy.
So you're saying that I should make my book free?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. We do the podcast free, the book charge. Matter of fact, I bought the book. I went on Amazon and I bought the book. And I read the book. I actually read about 85% of it, which is why I related to it. But I only had about 5 days to do that. But it really was an easy read and really enlightening. It's great to be able to share honestly something that when you read it, you kind of get motivated to, I guess Mitch motivates, you get motivated to take better care of yourself, I think.
Thank you. And people ask me, Mitch, what's next? What are you going to do with the book? Like, my answer is, I don't know. Whatever God has in store for me. I just, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. This morning, I brushed my teeth and I took a shower and I got dressed for work and I went to work. And I prayed and I called some alcoholics, called some drug addicts, talked to my family. I just do just one foot in front of the other, just one step at a time. And so far, it's really worked out for me, like beyond my wildest dreams. And it's so funny because when I try to take that away and try to manage everything, the opposite happens. I usually get myself in trouble.
So I have a question. So now the family's been through the mill.
Yeah.
Most of the time when we talk about these things, it's a while ago now. You have some long-term sobriety of 16 years, right?
Yep.
16 years.
Almost 16 years continuous sobriety, but it was I've been doing this since almost 18 years now.
Right.
Wow.
And I know the folks that you met way back in 2006,
Yeah.
solid people at Karen. But your family went through the mill with you.
Yeah.
How are your relationships with your family, and what has the changes in your family and personal life been as a result of all these things?
My family is the best. Since day one, they've been supportive of me. It's I hope to one day have my own family to pass that on. I am so lucky. It's so rare to have this support that I have. Starting from the second I got in trouble, went to go live with my aunt and uncle because I just felt safer in their house. My grandparents, may they rest in peace, came and visited me in rehab like it was a visiting day, right? It's unlimited support. Today I texted my brother to set up his birthday dinner. I texted my cousin to help her out with something she wanted. she needs a favor. I'm trying to help her with something. I texted my other cousins because we're having a birthday party in 2 weeks. Like, unbelievable. And this is very rare. My parents always offer to help, to talk to anyone. Because, like, I really think that they've done it right. I'm grateful. Because I've dealt with the opposite, and it's really heartbreaking to have parents not be supportive or not even accept that addiction is as serious as it is, and this, it just destroys families. So I'm grateful that my parents had the attitude from the beginning: trust the experts, listen, whatever they say, yes.
And the other part of that, I think, is sometimes you hit the lottery with your family. I had a very good experience with my mom and dad. They're both gone now, but I didn't really have any trauma growing up. I just loved to get high. I just love to get high. I really identify with that first beer. It took me longer to have the first beer, but when I had it, the fuse was lit and I was off and running.
Yeah.
But with regard to recovery, and just learning how to live, I needed a lot more than mom and dad. I needed a lot of moms and dads and friends and support in order to be able to figure out how to walk straight and how to be able to live a happy, purposeful life where I felt like, I had some balance. And it takes time to get that. When you're young, it's really difficult to figure everything out. And a lot of stuff hits you that you don't understand. And, staying sober notwithstanding, just even if you don't have an addiction issue, just figuring out how to live being frightened about things, how to live figuring out how to get past things that you worry about, financial insecurity, all these things. And then put that together with somebody whose default is to hurt themselves, is to try to feed yourself things that are going to make it harder for you to learn all those things. It's really a miracle that, we're sitting here doing this stuff. Life isn't easy, but when you get it, nobody can take it away from you. It's really something that we own.
Yeah.
And if we do things good one day at a time and we take care of ourselves every day, it sticks. Whereas when you get high, it works, but it doesn't last. And you're always chasing that and you can't catch it.
And well said. Yeah. And I really encourage anyone to just continue to share your story. Like, this shouldn't be a secret, but sharing my story in any way possible with as many people as I can really helps me keep it by giving it away. It is that's why I love being on podcasts. I love that I wrote a book and anyone in the US people in Idaho can order my book and hear my story. Listen to this podcast, because sharing the message is definitely a secret that works to keep it.
Well, I really appreciate your coming on Crosstalk. It's fascinating to hear your story and see where you started and where you are. And the thing that to me that is most compelling is the way you and your family are really together, and that you're giving them such blessings. And it goes in both directions. It's great. I can't wait to see what's next for Mitch Motivates.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. The way we end these things, and I don't want to embarrass you or anything, and if Sergio's, by the way, there's a question that I want to ask you, a question that we ask most of our guests. And the question is this: if you had anything to tell, let's say 15-year-old Mitch, where you are right now, and you had some advice you were going to give 15-year-old Mitch a couple of days before he had that first beer, a couple of days before he kind of went off in that direction, what advice might you give Mitch, the 15-year-old kid, based on your experience now?
That's a great question. Whenever I hear that type of question, the first thing I always think of is it's gonna all be okay. It's gonna all work out. And I think of my grandpa. We just lost him a couple months ago, and we used to go to hockey games, and he would drive us and then leave the key to the car on top of the wheel. He was just so careless about what seemingly thought was so important. Like today, I lock my car. I always check my pockets. Where's my keys? And my grandpa just didn't give a shit about anything. Like he didn't anything. He never sweated the small stuff. And I just like, I always think of him when I think of like everything is going to be okay and not giving a shit about the small things, because that's what we obsess over. And that's what I've obsessed over. And so I would tell myself, don't sweat the small stuff. It's going to be okay. And leave your key on your tire.
Great answer. I love that. So is there something that you wish other people would ask you more often?
Yeah, Mitch, where do you buy your book? And you've said Amazon, but for the sake of, again, keeping it to explain it to a 6-year-old, you could find me at mitchmotivates.com, one word. TikTok, Mitch Motivates. Instagram, Mitch Motivates. YouTube, Mitch Motivates. My email is mitch@mitchmotivates.com. It's just, I keep it simple.
All right, so let's run this again.
Keep it simple, stupid. That's the motto for where to find me.
All right, we get the idea, I think. We're going to find you at any one of those places, and I'm going to be looking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. All the links Mitch just told you about are going to be in the description, so go look for him and go get his book. Follow Mitch. He's got it together. Thanks for being here, Mitch.
Right.
Pleasure.
You guys hug it out. Hug it out.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.